Hello guys, welcome to a new video. In this video we're gonna talk about a really very nice camera. This camera has a lot of good features. It can shoot full HD video and it also have a microphone input jack built in inside it. Beside that, in terms of photography as well, it is such a great camera. Even though this camera is 12-year-old, but still can take great photos and great videos even today. So the camera that I'm talking about is Canon 550D. So this is such a nice camera. It is very solidly built. It feels great in your hands. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the notification icon. It features a 18 megapixel sensor. The ISO range on this camera goes from 100 to 6400, which you can expand to 12800. But in low lighting situation, it still does a decent job. It is not the best camera when it comes to low lighting situation, but it can do a decent job, I would say. If you use this camera along with the 50mm f1.8 lens, then even in the low lighting situation, it can take stunning photos and stunning videos. This camera do not have the dual pixel autofocus, but even despite that, if you use this camera in manual focus mode in videos, you can get great results. This has 9 autofocus points, and in the photos the autofocus is awesome. In the video the autofocus can hunt a bit. When you are using the lens, it can try to hunt and make some focusing noise. So I would advise you to use manual focus when you are doing the video. Since I already told you, this camera can have an external mic, so it is really good when it comes to making cinematic videos because you can capture professional audios. This can shoot full HD video and 30 frames per second. So still a decent camera. If you want to convert those full HD video into 4K, you can oversample them in a software and still upload them to YouTube. You can still get great results with this camera. If I talk about the dynamic range of this camera, it has 11.5 EV dynamic range. So not very high, but not very low either. The frame per second on this camera is 4 frames per second. So it is not the best camera when it comes to wildlife, sports and action photography. If I talk about the weight of the camera, it's around 530 grams. So it is quite lightweight. It's not very heavy, but despite that, it is professionally built. It feels great in your hands. This camera also has exposure bracketing. So using the exposure bracketing, you can take multiple different exposure and later on combine them in Lightroom and make a high dynamic range photo. So that is such a good option that this camera have. Now I'm gonna show you how this camera looks. So this is how the camera looks from the back. It has a 3-inch screen and this is not a touch screen. So all the menus that you have to navigate, all the options you have to change are using these dials, and from the top it looks like this. So it is a typical Canon camera. You have this dial and then you also have another dial over here, and here is the shutter button. On this side you have the SD card slot, and on this side you have the option to connect a microphone. So that is one really good feature on this camera. Beside that, you also have the mini HDMI port. So if you want to connect an external monitor, you can connect it to this port. So overall, it's a nice camera. It looks good in your hand and it feels good in your hands. Now I'm gonna put onto the screen some of the sample photos that I've taken with this camera, and the photos look really nice. All the photos are completely JPEG straight out of the camera. I have done no editing whatsoever on them, and I use this 40mm f2.8 STM lens to take those photos. And you can already see the photos look really nice. The contrast, the colors, the saturation, everything is really nice. The sharpness in the photos is also really good. So overall, if I rate this camera for photography, it can take really very nice photos even in today's time. I would say out of 10 I would give it 9 marks. The only 1 mark that I'm deducting is because it lacks some dynamic range. If it had higher dynamic range, then you could have taken more contrasty images where you can have like more highlights and more details in the shadows. So that is one drawback about this camera, but other than that, it can take stunning photos. You can use it for studio photography, for like your candid portrait photography as well, and within the studio as well. Now I'm gonna put onto the screen the sample video that I've taken with this camera, so you can see for yourself how the autofocus performs in the video and how the video quality looks like. One drawback is that since this camera do not have dual pixel autofocus, so the focus can hunt a bit in the video. It is not that smooth in transitioning from one point to another like in case of Canon cameras like Canon 70D, 80D, which are having the dual pixel autofocus. So you can see the kind of details that you can get from this camera. Right now I am focused on the bark of the tree and the video looks really very sharp, and even the background blur is really nice. I am using the 40mm f2.8 STM lens, and if I try to now focus back on the background, it does a bit of focus breathing, but it eventually focuses. But the video quality looks really very nice and stunning. So right now I'm focused on these leaves, and you can see you can get nice separation of the background. You can see nice background blur. And if I now focus back on the background, so it does some kind of a focus breathing, but it does manage to focus. So overall this camera is pretty good if you want to make cinematic videos. However, I would advise you to use manual focusing if you want to move the focus from one place to another one. Now the final question, should you get this camera in 2022 and beyond or not? Well guys, if you can get this camera for around 150 to 180 US dollar, then this is a great buy for you, because if you compare this camera with Canon 1200D, 1300D, those cameras do not have microphone input jack, but in this camera you can hook an external microphone and get professional audio. So this is a really good feature if you want to have professional cinematic videos, or if you want to record some videos for YouTube. Otherwise you have to record the audio externally in some other device and then later on sync in post. But with this camera you don't have to go through all that. So this is still a better buy compared to those cameras. Now since I already told you, you can get this camera along with the kit lens for around 150 to 180 US dollar depending on the shutter count and the condition of the camera. So this is still one of the cheapest camera that you can get, where you have a microphone input jack, you have really good photography features, and also full HD video. So I can definitely recommend this camera to you in 2022. But if you need a camera where you need a flip out screen, because in this camera you cannot see yourself vlogging, then maybe this camera is not for you. But if you don't mind being behind the camera, if you mostly make videos behind the camera like cinematic videos of nature and those kind of things, then this is still a very good camera, because even in those kind of videos most of the time you are manually focusing, and if you are manually focusing using this camera, then you don't have to worry about this dual pixel autofocus. Then this is a perfect camera for you to start with. For photography as well, you can get great professional results even in today's standard, and for videography as well, you can get stunning video even with this camera. So I can definitely recommend this camera for you guys. Alright guys, I hope you liked my review. If you liked it, like and share it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the notification icon.